Hi, welcome. If you arrived here at our webinar, we are so excited to have you. You have joined us for the Be On Air Forum, which is our initiative, our national initiative from the Be On Air network of media schools. We have a very, very special evening planned for you. We have brought together an esteemed panel to talk about recruitment and opportunities for you to grow your career. But before we get started, let me do a quick introduction. For those of you who have not met me before, my name is Linda Lejeski. I am the National Employer Representative for the Be On Air network of media schools. We have 7 media schools, and we're hoping that some of our students and our graduates have joined us here tonight. I know they're going to continue to join as we move along the hour. This is a career service initiative, and the goal behind the Be On Air network, the Be On Air Forum, is really to bring together our students, our graduates, and our extended community so you can learn more about the things that interest you as you grow your careers, and also for you to network and have a chance to meet our industry experts who so generously give their time to us so that you can learn how to be able to be successful in those things that mean the most to you. For tonight, I'm going to jump in Tony should be showing up any second now. He is our moderator. But as we start to get started, excuse me, I'm going to let him in. I just got a message. He's here. Give me a quick second. Let me add him to the stage. I'm going to take Holly off the stage, even though we love to see you, Holly. We'll see you a little bit more later, because it's getting crowded in here. Okay, welcome, Tony. We're so happy that you're here tonight. We are complete. I just want to let you know that as we roll through this forum, there is a chat option. So if you have questions for our guests, please feel free to put your questions in the chat. We'll be moderating it, and as we move through, there will be some Q&A. I'm just very, very excited to introduce you briefly to our guests that are joining us here. They bring to the table over 100 years of experience. And when you look at them, you're like, oh no, how is that even possible? They look so very young. But they have been in the industry, many starting as intern to leadership. And I'm just very, very excited that they're going to bring their expertise to you tonight. As a brief introduction, Lonnie Snow is a very good friend to our campus. She is with Next Star Media Group. She is a 25-year veteran. I love to say that, Lonnie. Lonnie started as intern to news producer to web producer to executive producer to news director, and now sits in a senior recruitment role. She is in the state of Ohio. I love to say that because that's where I'm from, but she does do national work, and she does a lot of work with college students who are looking to expand and grow in their career. So we're very excited to have you with us, Lonnie. Jerry Butler is with us tonight, and he leverages over 30 years in radio leadership roles, and he comes to us with a lot of experience in the radio and entertainment industry. He's now a managing partner with Media Job Reports, and we're going to put that information into the chat. You have an opportunity to reach out to all of our guests, but Jerry's going to share his expertise that he's accumulated over the years within the industry. Dan Ginsberg is with us tonight from Chicago. We're so excited to have Dan. Dan's 20 years in the industry. Hard to believe it, Dan, just impossible. Dan has been with Clear Channel, which is now iHeart, throughout his career, which I think is really quite amazing. He's had many roles. He started off, I believe, as an intern, and he's grown his way. He's been an on-air personality. He's been a producer, a director. He's interviewed and hired many people that have moved into the radio industry. He now is the operations manager at Total Traffic and Weather Network, which is part of iHeart, and he's going to add his expertise to the panel. And then we have our wonderful Matt Fishman. Matt Fishman is, too, a great friend to the campus, as they all are. Matt, you've got 30 years in the industry. I think that's quite remarkable and fabulous. Matt is a sports content leader, and Matt has made his journey through many wonderful, wonderful organizations. He's been with Odyssey, Sirius XM, always talking sports and growing sports. He's been with Barrett's, Good Karma, ESPN, was where Matt and I met in Cleveland. Very good friend to our student interns that have grown their careers with ESPN. And now he finds himself as program director, operations manager at Tegna's WBNS, home of the Ohio State Buckeyes. Each of our guests have had their opportunity to help people advance their careers, people that are just starting out, people in the middle of their careers, and people who are in leadership roles who are also looking to grow. They are so excited to be here to share their ideas and thoughts with you. And our moderator tonight, you all know, our wonderful Tony Lopez. Tony is an on-air personality himself. He is a graduate of Illinois Media School. He's an instructor, and now he is also education coordinator for our downtown Chicago campus. He does a beautiful job moderating. I'm going to go underneath. I'm going to moderate the chat so I can send the questions up. But we thought Tony would be a great moderator to talk from an education perspective to you guests so that you're able to combine your education, what you're learning, to how you want to grow and find your success in the industry. So without further ado, I know that was a long introduction, but we had a big panel, Tony. What am I going to do? So I hand it to you and have a wonderful hour. And for our guests, put your questions in the chat and we're going to have you join us as well.
Thank you, Linda. And as always, the intros are solid. always beautiful. They make me cry every time I have to take over. So thank you, Linda. And thank you to Lonnie, Jerry, Dan, and Matt for being here with us today on the Beonair Forum. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you with us. I'm excited to talk to you guys and have you guys answer some questions. And of course, as Linda mentioned before, at the 45-minute mark of this forum, we are going to be opening up the floor for questions like that. You guys can answer some of them and engage with our audience here as we move along in the forum. But happy to have you guys here. This is a pretty intimidating topic we're speaking on today. When it comes to students who have graduated and when it comes to they're looking for that first gig or maybe the second or third one, right? It's still something that you have to get right in a sense. And of course, you guys are the experts, so I'm excited to talk about that. And I'm just going to go right down here real quick, and we're going to stick on the topic right here of pretty much acing the interview, right? The interview part is got to be the dreaded part, right? Where you go in, you're speaking to someone you don't know, and you're trying to sell yourself. So we'll start with Matt Fishman. Matt, what are the key qualities that you look for in interviews for an entry-level position?
Sure. I look for people to be prepared, right? Like I want to know that they want to work with me, for me, and not that they just want a job. And you may just want a job out there, but you should act like when you're at that interview that that's the place you've always wanted to work and really prepare, right? And look, most companies' information is right on their website. So read it. And if they're a radio or TV station, watch or listen so that you go in there showing, not only telling the hiring manager that you're interested in it, but show them that you're interested in it.
That's really good. You have to definitely do your research without a doubt. That's one of the key things I remember as a student being taught is know who you are talking to show the investment and where you want to be. So that's awesome, Matt. Jerry, with that interview process, a lot of people, apply to different jobs. How can candidates best prepare for interviews, in a fast-paced media industry? It's not the things flow so fast. What should they prepare for when they approach the interview?
Well, I think it goes back to what Matt said. You got to prepare. You got to know who you're going to be talking with. Find out who your interviewee will be. It could be an individual. It could be a panel. Find out information on them. Find out information on not only the job that you're applying for, but the organization as a whole, what you're walking into. As you find out more and more information about that, you're going to be better prepared to answer any questions that are coming. The other side of getting ready for an interview is practicing your interview. We talk about practicing on the air, writing scripts, doing different things. The same is true for an interview. It's not any different. Find a mentor, find a friend that can ask you questions and practice answering those questions. And you want the tough questions. And so as you practice, pretty soon the nerves go out the window and it becomes second nature. So practice, practice, practice. With mentors, with friends, with your current job, your bosses that you may have right now, they know that you're looking, you're going to school right now for this. They will help you as well.
That's good stuff right there, Jerry. Dan, when we talk about interviews, a lot of people strategize, when they go there. They're like, I'm going to do this. So I think I'm going to prepare for this, right? For you, Dan, what are the strategies applicants often overlook when they go into an interview for such an environment like this?
Yeah, well, I think Matt and Jerry hit a lot of nails on the head there. But I mean, the biggest thing to me is be authentic and be honest. That stands out. I mean, we're looking at character as much as we're looking at, accomplishments on a resume and to that type of stuff. Tell us what you know and what you've learned through the course of your education or internships or other jobs you've had, and be honest about what you want to learn, but may not be short up on. I mean, most of the hiring we're doing externally, when it's not a promotion to someone who we're already experienced with on our staff, is, it's a work in progress. It's a position where we're going to bring people in who we think have the right skill set to learn, some of the aspects that they don't know. But if we ask a question that's leading toward trying to get a sense of experience, I would much rather hear an honest answer about the things they're excited to learn, than attempting to make it look like they're the ideal candidate. I think Matt did a great job of talking about researching the company, researching the position. Those are real easy things to gather info about, to show, and it shows that you care and that you're passionate about it. And the other thing I'd stress is be prepared to explain your career interests and how the role you're interviewing for fits into that. That, to me, we want people who aren't just going to be great in the role for a month or two and then get interested in something else. Now, if they go on to better opportunities with our company or another, that's awesome. But, we want to know, how does this potential role fit into your career interests, how you see your career progressing.
That's awesome stuff, Dan. Lonnie, I'm gonna give you the red flags question, because there are so many that pop up, I am sure. But really, from your perspective and what you've seen in your career, what are red flags that you look for when people come to interview?
So, I think common red flags that we look for in terms of, looking over their resume, and they've used a resume template, but they haven't changed things in their resume template, and it says anywhere USA. And that means to me that they haven't had anyone go back and check over their resume. It's a lot about their research. So if you're interviewing at a TV station, download their app, sign up for their push alerts, follow them on social media, connect with the hiring managers on LinkedIn. If you come in and you don't know what's going on in the news in that market, or you haven't listened to the radio station at all, that tells me that you're not tuned in. It's the same thing that I kind of say, is that if you're interested in a job, and let's say you're interested, you want to work in Savannah, Georgia. And so it's Monday morning and you're like, I'm going to email this news director and say, hope you had a great weekend. Well, guess what? They were really busy this weekend with the dock collapse there and breaking news coverage. You got to know your audience and know when to reach out to news directors. So if you're emailing me on that Monday, I'm going to say that you probably didn't take time to go to our website to look to see if we've been covering breaking news. To me, that's a little bit of a red flag, because it takes 2 seconds. Go to the website, see if they're in breaking news coverage. Maybe they're in hurricane coverage. They're still cleaning up, from the hurricane devastation from Milton, that you want to wait a little while to reach out to that candidate. I'd say another thing too is, if you're trying to score that interview, watch out how many times you reach out to that hiring manager and on what platforms. I always give this example because it's a great one. When I was a news director, in a 30-minute time span, when I was in breaking news coverage, I had a candidate direct message me on Twitter, message me on Facebook, email me, text me, call my cell phone, and call my office line in 30 minutes about a job. That was overkill. So I always advise candidates that, pick an avenue and stick to it. You can connect with that hiring manager on LinkedIn, but send them an email and then see if you get a response. It's okay in a week or so to reach back out, but just don't overdo it in that communication, because it will be a turnoff for that hiring manager to score that interview and get in the building or get on that Zoom call.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I can speak from personal experience. When I first started, that word overkill is huge. Because you can definitely dissuade somebody if you don't do it properly. So definitely it's good advice from Lonnie there in regards to how to reach out to employers. That's good stuff. We're going to talk about, and you guys have all mentioned about researching your employers and kind of like, doing that part before you get to that interview. And we're going to touch base on that in a bit. But I want to go to one of the most important pieces, I think, besides the interview when it comes to, seeking work and basically selling yourself, is that resume and cover letter, right? That's something that's been part of the working environment and industry forever, right? We know it's where you display what have you done, what are your skill sets and so forth, and that has evolved over the years, in any workplace, right? And especially for specific work environments and so forth. So Matt, I'm going to go to you on this first question here. What elements make a resume stand out to you, in your opinion?
Yeah, it's funny, and it probably depends on the business, right? At what a resume should look like. And I would say, radio is a pretty creative business. So if someone sends me a resume that looks like I could have done it when I was in high school on a typewriter and doesn't use any of the technology and maybe some color and some graphics and some formats, look, they're really easy to find. I think Lonnie perfectly pointed out that you got to fill it all out and you got to check it. But there are a lot of great, easy, cheap, and even free formats that people can use to make things stand out. So I think that's one. Two is, do the jobs on this resume what do they mean to the job they're applying for, right? Is this, I had a boss when I was at SiriusXM who literally almost didn't hire a guy who ended up being a great producer because he had put on that he worked at PetSmart. He had worked at PetSmart, but in that case, it wasn't relevant to that, to a producing position. So relevance is important, the way it looks, and no mistakes, typos, formatting, anything. It just looks sloppy. And it's like, why would I want to hire someone who's putting forth their best stuff and it looks like this?
Yeah. No, for sure. You have to be accurate on that resume. It shows a lot, obviously, too, besides, what you're presenting. It shows a skill set and stuff. And Lonnie, I'm going to go to you on this next question. The skill set part on resumes and resumes can be, kind of crucial. And also it can be an intimidating factor too for an applicant. How can applicants effectively showcase the skill set and experiences on a resume in itself?
So I would say on a resume, longer is not better. Just because your resume is longer does not mean that I'm going to contact you. There's a lot of times when people make their skills section 15, 16 bullet points long, and they'll be applying for a position and they'll put dependable, they'll put a great interviewer. Well, you better be dependable. You're applying for a job. I think some of those things you can incorporate in the bullet points of either your internship experience or your school experience. For example, in a skills, they'll put editing. Well, go in your school experience and put edited packages on Premiere Pro. Get specific with that, and then you can get rid of the skills section. Quite honestly, I think a lot of hiring managers are looking at the bullet points of the internships or the jobs more so than the skills section, because I want to know, do you have that attention to detail where I can really get a feel for what you did at that position in terms of your experience and how it relates to the job opening that I have? And in that bullet points, I would say stick to 3 to 5 bullet points under each description and position that you have. And, kind of add a little bit to what Matt said, when you're first starting off, I actually like that PetSmart example because it shows if you've worked there for 2 years, you're dependable. You can be counted on to fill in that kind of thing. Yes, it's not relevant, but if you're just starting off and you don't have a lot, maybe you were doing that while you were going to school, you were working that job, and I can call that manager and find out that you would pick up extra shifts, that you wanted to learn more about the management side. That to me is intriguing and may make me like you more as a candidate.
Sometimes simplicity is almost better, in some areas. So I can definitely see where you're coming from that, Lonnie. Jerry, I'll ask you this, Matt made a mention of mistakes and typos. What are the common mistakes applicants have made that you've seen when you're reviewing them?
Just lack of consistency is a problem. If you see dates and they're specific, if it's month and year, keep it consistent all the way throughout your resume. Make sure that your contact information is on every item that you're sending. If you're sending a resume and you're sending a cover letter and you've got anything else with it, make sure contact information is on every page, because it's very easy to get those pages separated, and then I don't know how to get a hold of you. So I watch out for that. Going back to what Lonnie was saying, it's really important to be concise, but at the same time, you want to give the information that is pertinent to the job. I taught at the University of Florida for 7 years and worked with students getting internships in their first jobs. And I go back to what Lonnie had said. I liked some of those times where students would put, I was working at PetSmart, or I worked at a restaurant, or I worked as a babysitter. What are the two most important things, most protected things people look at? Their money and their children. It may not be pertinent to be a producer or writing news, but if you've handled money for 2 years, you're trustworthy. You didn't get let go. If you've babysat for 2 years and taken care of kids, it's important because you're trustworthy. Now, 3 years into your career, those should never be on there. But starting out, if you don't have other experience to list it and make sure that you make that connection to whatever position that you're applying to. I think it's extremely important to make that connection, no matter what that position is.
Yeah, no, that's great right there, Jerry. When it comes to resume, there's also that cover letter, right? And Dan, I'm going to go to you on this question. Cover letters can be done in many different ways, or I guess expressed in many different ways. What excites you about a cover letter? Like, what really is a good cover letter to you, Dan?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say explain what you've done and where you're headed. What excites you about this role? What are your long-term goals, and how does this role potentially fit into it? I don't want to be a broken record, because I know all three of our other panelists referred to this in their resume answer, but spelling and grammar. I can't tell you, and particularly a lot of the people I'm hiring are going to be producing or reporting traffic. I mean, either way, they need to be able to enter info in a way that, thousands of people are going to read it legibly and logically. I mean, that, I can look at 10 job applications and eliminate 6 or 7 of them just based on that. So, have multiple people proofread it, look over it. Again, explain what you've done to this point in your cover letter, and whether that's, as Lonnie and Jerry referenced, if you're newer to this field, talk about how your previous experience in other fields relates to this field. If you're not new to this field, that previous stuff obviously is less relevant, and you have things to point to in your experience within this field. And the last thing I'd say with the cover letter is, I think it's a great place to explain gaps in your employment if you have any. This is something that comes up in our industry a lot. Gaps in employment are okay, particularly in our industry. Anybody who's worked here long enough knows companies go through layoffs and restructurings, and people, get burnt out and pursue another career, and then, miss being on the air and come back to us. We see, probably more than just about any other industry, such a wide range of paths leading up to the point that we might be interviewing and hiring someone. And there's no one wrong or right path, but giving the cover letter is an opportunity to maybe give us some background, so that when we do open up your resume and notice, I saw a question in the chat about not having a lot of industry experience, but none since 2018. Explain to us briefly, succinctly, what happened in 2018. What were all the things you learned over the next 6 years, based on whatever you were doing, whether it was work in another industry, or, being a first-time parent, or, whatever that may be. That's an opportunity to give us a little more background as we jump into your resume, to kind of paint a more complete picture of, the person you are and the candidate you are and what you could bring to the role.
Yeah, resume and cover letters are very important. So all my former students and people on that chat, man, start getting them ready, and make sure you are on point when you get them out there. So that is awesome stuff, guys. One of the bullet points that we wanted to touch base on during the forum is the researching potential employers, right? You guys have kind of made already some commentary about that and how important it is. I think in the media industry, especially, it is so important because of the way things are and things are structured when it comes to media. So I'm gonna start with Jerry first here. Jerry, what are the most effective ways for a candidate to research companies nowadays? It's 2024, so 10 years ago it was slightly different. Websites were different, right? Job research was kind of different. What can candidates do nowadays in 2024?
Well, they can look at job boards. They can look at the individual companies' job boards and their information. And when I'm saying the companies, it could be the local company, the local radio, TV station, whatever it may be, but it could be their corporate as well. So you can get an idea of what's going on. If you follow a lot of these job boards, whether it's at the corporate level or it's a private job board out there, you'll see which ones are rotating quite often. And sometimes if they constantly have the same openings over and over and over again, that may tell you a little bit. Glassdoor is another opportunity to look. A lot of companies like it. A lot of companies don't like it because people can post kind of whatever they think at the time. And sometimes those are disgruntled employees, but it's still a research factor. And you can look up and see how a company is rated. Companies change as well. I know I've worked for companies that are vastly different now than they were 10 years ago. So keep that in mind. But online, look at their job offerings, look at their corporate, look at the local market, and find out what they're doing. It's really easy to research. And more importantly than all of that, network. Connect with people within the industry. They're going to give you an unbiased opinion in many cases, better than a Glassdoor, because you do have disgruntled employees on there sometimes. And so as you network, not only can you find out openings and opportunities that may not even be posted yet, but you're going to make connections that can possibly open doors for you as well.
That's great stuff right there. It's good bites. So, Dan, I'll go to you here over this question. How can job seekers use company insights to tailor their application and interview, because it can change from company to company? Ooh, I think Dan's muted.
There we go. Yeah, well, I want to kind of piggyback off of the tail end of what Jerry was saying, which is networking is probably would be my single biggest takeaway in a lot of these types of questions you're asking. The reality is we talk about all these key points with resumes and with the interview. But, a lot of the times when we post a job, we have hundreds and hundreds of applicants. And the reality is it's not always going to be feasible for, every manager to, review with a fine tooth comb, every detail of every person's resume. Get on the radar however you can. It does, a huge percentage of the people I've brought in and have become great employees over the years have been through word of mouth, whether it's someone on our current staff recommending someone, whether it's, I don't feel just because you don't have those built-in connections that you're at a disadvantage. You can eliminate that disadvantage through research. Figure out who the hiring manager is, or find someone in a related position through LinkedIn. Send a message. Again, Lonnie talked about there's a line where you're doing too much. You don't want to find someone and they don't respond and you nag them 12 times. But build those types of connections to try to get on the radar. And I think that's going to give a leg up. And refresh my memory about the question. I know I sort of went off on a tangent there. Refresh my memory on the original question.
Oh, no, it's okay. It was more like how can job seekers use company insights to their application and interview? So some candidates may alter something for a certain job, and so forth. So that was a question. But you were there.
Well, yeah. No, I know I covered. I think I would also come back to my original. I want to see honesty and transparency. I don't need, when I'm hiring for an overnight producer who's going to work 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. Friday and Saturday nights. And if I'm interviewing you, Tony, I don't need you to sit there and tell me that this is your dream job, because you're lying. It's not anybody's dream job, but it might be a dream next step toward your ultimate dream job. So I think, have a set, build a sense, whether that's through networking, whether that's through a lot of the resources that a lot of us have, have mentioned previously, have a sense of sort of the company structure, where, the types of questions you want to ask that are going to help you build that career path. And, be transparent and be honest about what excites you and what doesn't. At the end of the day, if you sit down for an interview, ideally, my best interviews, that person is interviewing me while I'm interviewing them. And maybe they're finding out through the course of that interview that the position they're interviewing for isn't exactly what they had in mind, and it might not be the right fit for them, but we might have something else for them, either in another department right now or, in our department down the road. So I think that's something to bear in mind as well.
No, that's good. That's really good. Lonnie, actually, all of you again have touched kind of based on some of this, but Lonnie, I'll ask you, when it comes to doing your research, how important is understanding a company's culture when applying for a job? That's something that's always preached upon when we're here with students and on campus. But to you, how important is it?
It's very important. One of the questions that I always ask candidates is, what do you know about Nexstar? Do you know any employees who work for Nexstar? Do you know much about the company? And it kind of teaches us to know if they've done any research on the company. And it goes back to honesty. I like, when they say, I know that you guys have a lot of stations, you're the largest broadcast group, or haven't really done too much research. But, going to the company's website and, I see that you guys have a lot of stations. I go to college right now in New Orleans, but I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, and I know that you have a station there. Well, guess what? That shows me that you have done your research, or, the culture of the company, in the sense of, you guys have a lot of stations, you in a radio station. I think you do cable news with News Nation. That shows me that they've done their research. And when they ask me, how do you guys help with career advancement? What programs do you have? That lets me know that they're interested in staying with the company. Or, when they interview at the station, I always, encourage candidates to ask, where have employees at that station gone to? Have they gone on to other stations within the company? And that applies to any industry, because that tells you whether the company supports that internal promotion. Do they have a mentorship program? These are all questions that you can learn to figure out the company's culture. So I think through the interview process is how you begin to understand a company's culture beyond what you have done in the research through their website. And you can also connect with people through LinkedIn in the job that you're interviewing for. So, maybe connect with a reporter or a producer, or you find another production tech if you're applying for a job, and message them, do you have time for a quick phone call? I want to learn more about that station. I'd say that they probably will say yes to that answer, because they've had a mentor before in the past who's helped them. So they want to help you. Another point I wanted to bring up that's good and a good resource is look at Facebook groups, look at industry groups. So like the Society of Professional Journalists, SPJ, AAJA, NABJ, IRE. These are all professional groups that you can join, that you can find mentors in. You can find people who have gone through the job search process, and they can help guide you along the way if you want to bounce some questions off of them. And some of them are free. Some of them, there's a fee. There's also conferences throughout the year that you can go to collaborate with other journalists, but there are professional organizations out there and LinkedIn groups and Facebook groups that you can be a part of that I think are really advantageous for job candidates.
That's great. That's great information. I hope our students are writing this stuff down. I really do. No, it's awesome, man. It's so good. Matt, I'm going to ask you this question. Can you give me a good or a bad example of an interview or a person you met that didn't research or that did research the company in your case, something that really stood out to you, whether it be negative or positive?
Well, unfortunately, the most memorable is negative, right? Is easy to remember. You're interviewing someone for a position. This is back when I was in Cleveland a couple of years ago. And I always would ask, and this is just an easy softball question, if you are researched and paying attention, I said, "Oh, what's your favorite show on the station?" And they sort of gave half of a name of one of the shows, and it definitely showed that they had never listened to it, and they had just repeated something they had heard in the interview. And it's like, oh, you just, you're not really that interested. So, I don't think we expect everyone to know everything about our business, but you should be able to show us that if it's a media product, that you've consumed it, and that you've done some research. It's, I hate to sound like the old guy on the call, but I will. Like, when I was first looking for jobs right out of college, like, you had to go to the library and look stuff up and mail stuff to people. And if you wanted information about the company, again, back to the library, and you had to look these companies up. Now it's all right at your fingertips. So it's never been easier to be prepared for an interview. And so that's one that jumped out at me. It was just like, whoa, this person just sort of showed up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Gotta definitely know your stuff when it comes to that process. So, Lonnie, I'm gonna go to you on this next question. I'm gonna shift gears a little bit and talk about LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a platform that has grown over the years, and many different industries are using it now to hire people, right, or to find the candidates that they need for their company. So I'll just be really, general with this question, Lonnie. Like, how important is LinkedIn now?
It's so crucial. And I talk to candidates all the time, and I tell them, they're worried, I don't have a private website. I don't know how to code. I'm going to have to pay for it. LinkedIn is free. Use that as your website. Post professional updates. Post photos of you maybe in the studio editing a project that you're working on. Then follow up and post a link to that project on your LinkedIn site. Connect with hiring managers for companies that you like to work for, and really maintain that professional profile on LinkedIn. Put a picture in, put your contact information in. Hiring managers, when they get a job applicant, they're going to LinkedIn and they're searching their name. Or maybe they're doing a reverse search and they're going to LinkedIn to find candidates. And so having your contact information and your email address on your LinkedIn profile is so handy. Remember what LinkedIn is for. LinkedIn is not for those, okay, I'm on vacation, I'm in a bathing suit, here's a picture. Keep it professional. It's fine to post those on Instagram, on your Facebook page. LinkedIn, for the most part, is professional. And it doesn't mean you can't put an out in office reply, or, maybe you're taking part in National Dog Day and you're trying to, want to post a picture of your dog. But for the most part, keep it professional and realize that it's your online resume. And really, if you build that, you can just copy it to a paper resume. But update it, because when you connect with a hiring manager on LinkedIn, when you update it, you're getting back in their feed. So they're going, oh, I've got to reconnect with that person. They connected with me. I see that they're graduating soon, or they messaged me. They're back in my feed. They're top of mind now. So it's such a great tool to use. It's free. If candidates don't have a LinkedIn profile, I really highly encourage them to create one. Have someone take a headshot of you. It can be against a blank wall in your house using an iPhone camera, crop it, and there you go. It doesn't need to be this $200 professional headshot that you pay for. So there are so many services on LinkedIn that are free for you to use and can really help you in your job search.
I know Lonnie uses LinkedIn for her candidates or for research, so that was really good. That was really good. And Lonnie actually, I'm going to you, Jerry, next. Lonnie actually kind of talked about some strategies on how to utilize LinkedIn. Jerry, do you have any other different ones that you would suggest, or that you see that works for companies in general?
I think I'm in agreement 100% with Lonnie. I think it's vital that you have a LinkedIn profile. I required that of my students when I was teaching at UF. I made it an assignment. They had to create a profile if they didn't have one, and if they had one, they just had to update it. Wanted to make sure everything was up to date. I think the key is to have the different areas complete. You can go in and you can ask for references, and people will give you recommendations right there on LinkedIn. And so when somebody's looking and they see those references, that looks really good on you. You can post professional material that you would normally put in your portfolio. If you've got a story that you had written or you had produced while being on air, you can post that information right there where people can see your portfolio. And so it's not just your resume, it's even more than that. So I think it's extremely important to have that profile, have it up to date and ready to go. Saying that, I think you can join groups on LinkedIn that you'll be able to gain information that you didn't know about the industry. And there's so many groups that you can participate in that even if you never interacted and all you did was read, you're going to pick up a lot of information that's going to help you move forward.
Absolutely. In about 5 minutes or so, just for our audience out there, we are going to open up the question and answer segment where we get to ask the questions and our guests will be able to, answer them and give you some insight. So I have a couple questions left here, so stay tuned for that if you're waiting online. Matt and Jerry, you touched it right off the bat here. How important is it for candidates to engage on LinkedIn in groups, right, or just on pages itself? Is that something that's seen as you're looking for a candidate, someone who's engaging in different groups and different posts?
Yeah, and I think, but you have to be careful, right? You don't want to put stuff out there that makes you not look good. But I think engaging, and then if say you're based in Columbus, like I am, and you're traveling to Cincinnati for a couple of days, if you're connected to a news director or somebody, hey, I'm going to be in Cincinnati. Would you have a couple minutes, to meet or for me to see your station, right? Just another way to engage, or if you're really interested in working for a certain company, keep an eye on them, follow them on LinkedIn. I would even suggest doing Google alerts on them. And you can be like, hey, I just saw that you guys are adding, using AI in a different way at your stations. I'd love to connect with you on that. I think the more specific you can be, then you're not just looking to talk, but if it shows your interest again, I think that's another way to connect with people.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I think when it comes to that, and the success part is so important. Obviously, you want to be successful in this. Dan, I'm going to ask you this question. After LinkedIn and the resume and the interview and everything that you have to get prepared, a lot of students do experience failure. It's not an easy thing to do, and it can take a toll on some people. What advice would you give to graduates who are struggling to find that first gig? Right, it's something that's so looked forward to when they get into the program, but sometimes they don't get it right away. What advice would you give to them?
Yeah, a couple things. I would say, first off, be open and willing to just about anything. Very few of us, if any of us, worked a particularly glamorous first job or maybe first 3 or 4 jobs in the industry. So be open to the idea that you might have this vision of where your career is going to head as soon as you get out of media school or take that next step. It's probably not going to look like you imagine right away. So be mindful of that and don't give up. I can't tell you how many times I've given a great interview and just ended up hiring someone who had a little bit more direct experience or who had a little bit stronger reference. But I will tell you, we try to always be in a position that when something opens up, we already have candidates in mind who we've spoken to before or who have come highly recommended to us. I can't tell you how many times over the years I've hired someone who I interviewed for a position a few months or a year or two ago, and it was a great interview, but someone beat them out a little bit, but the next time something opened up, they were right on the radar. So, don't give up. And the other thing I'd say is, if you want to work somewhere, don't wait for a position to open up there. Yeah. If you have a company or companies in mind that are dream locations for you, use LinkedIn, use those networking sources to get in touch. I love to, we're really excited about this new office space we opened a couple years ago. We love to show people around our studios and our performance space. I do, and I'll do interviews even when we don't have positions. I'll give someone a tour, sit down, get to know about them in the career. Because again, when we have something opened up, this is not an industry that has an excess of positions. When something opens up, we want to fill it yesterday. And so we love to have people on the radar So, maybe you come in, you meet with me, and and it can be frustrating that a couple months go by and you don't hear something, and then all of a sudden someone resigns, and it'd be my first call. And the other thing I just real briefly wanted to mention with the LinkedIn stuff, make it if you're actively searching for a job, make your LinkedIn profile, and particularly your job experience section, public. If I'm not going to go and follow request or wait for a connection to be accepted with a potential job candidate. I might search them, look and see what I can see, and if I can't see much, move on to the next person. And there's a lot of privacy settings that you can tinker with, and you certainly don't need to show off your National Dog Day post or whatever to everyone if you don't want to, and you may not want to. But in terms of the relevant things to prospective employers, make that stuff public if you're actively searching, because you want to make it as easy as possible for potential employers to see the relevant stuff for you. And set up job alerts. I've used that for myself when I was looking for jobs in the past, and I've had hired people who initially found us for job alerts. LinkedIn is really, you can set up weekly emails where you can put in specific keywords, specific locations, types of positions, etc. Set up alerts. It's the technology is pretty good in finding matching things for you. And B, if you're getting overwhelmed and frustrated, it sort of helps just keep you chugging along. It becomes a regular weekly task for you. Every Wednesday night, you get an email with, the 6 latest matching jobs for the keywords you entered, and you look at all 6, and maybe 2 or 3 of them seem interesting enough to apply. Utilize those features. They can go a long way.
Yeah, so much good advice and counsel there when it comes to using LinkedIn and just in general. One last question before we get to our segment here. I'm going to go to Lonnie on this one. I just came from a Chicago podcast summit over the weekend, and it was full of entrepreneurs. Everyone has a podcast nowadays, right? And entrepreneurs were the heavy genre at this summit. And so, Lonnie, how can entrepreneurs enter the media field and use it, to their advantage? It's something that it's been discussed between them, but I've heard entrepreneurs get a little intimidated by the media field. How can they have success in this field?
So I'd say be willing to widen your scope in terms of the positions that you're looking at. So, I've had some candidates in the past who want to be lifestyle hosts, and they're only looking for lifestyle host positions. Well, maybe you can start off as a production assistant and then associate producer. And then you can be a producer, and then you can make the transition to on air because you've grown at that station and you've shadowed the lifestyle producer. You have learned what it takes to be a lifestyle producer. Just because you take that entry level position in as maybe a production tech or assistant doesn't mean that you are stuck in that position. You're not put in a box. You're learning the ins and out of that station. When I was a news director, I had a production assistant who worked their way up to become a producer and then worked their way into the creative services department and was a creative services producer. So it's a great entry level position, and then you can move up within the company. And so I think widening your scope, because if you keep it really narrow focused to one city or one position and, I've applied for this one job. Well, kind of going back to what Dan said, maybe they already have a candidate in mind from a past search. And so your search is so tight that you might not hear back. Or if you widen your scope a little bit, apply to other positions at that station. Or maybe you're a podcaster. A great transition would be a digital producer because you know how to make snackable videos. You can be taught how to write. You're very digitally savvy being a podcaster. So maybe you just don't know much about a digital producer job. Connect with a mentor, connect with a digital producer, find out what they do. Sometimes all it takes is, having that phone call and learning about the different positions. Because I've talked to many candidates who are like, I didn't really know what a digital producer did, but now that I see all the different creative aspects that they have, I'm interested in it. So a lot of times asking questions can help you really benefit in your job search and widening that scope.
Well, the media field is a lot of fun. Many that enter realize the depth of it and how it can change their lives. But hopefully, you know, the insight that you guys have given can really, you know, structure what the students are looking for, and anybody else that's on the chat here as well. So let's get to our Q&A section now. And you guys have been so great today. And so I'm just going to read the questions out, and if anybody wants to tackle it, go ahead and do so. First question from Diana Carolina Barrios. She says, would you recommend to have a LinkedIn profile in Spanish and English?
I can take this and say an enthusiastic yes. You know, we just like anything else, if you have reporting experience for a producer position, that's a plus. If you have, you know, if you're fluent in Spanish, even if even if it may be an English speaking position, that's nothing but a plus. And you know, here we service a number of Spanish radio affiliates, and so that would be a huge awesome sign to me if I'm looking at a candidate, even though the role I'm bringing them into may not, you know, involve them using the Spanish language on a daily basis. It sets them up as they build, you know, as they grow in that position, and we look at ways for them to expand down the road. They're fluent in Spanish. We have Spanish affiliates who, you know, may have a reporting position opened up. Just like anything else, the more you can do to market yourself and demonstrate knowledge of a skill, including certainly a language fluency, is nothing but a good thing from my perspective.
Good stuff. I hope you got that, Diana. Good stuff here. Let's continue here with the next question. She also just said I have had over 15 years of experience in the media field in another country, and that experience ended in 2018. How can I make that stand out in my resume? A lot of employers don't take this info for not being, I believe there's more on there, for not being
Current,
very current. Yes. My apologies, guys. I want to make sure I get this question correct for Deanna.
Yeah, it's in the chat the same way. I think it just got cut off because of character length.
Yeah. But yeah, does anybody want to tackle that question?
I think that all of that experience is pertinent. I think you show that, you highlight that, and you bring that to the top of your resume. I mean, that is something that's directly applicable to the position you're applying for. It needs to be there. If they ask why you've moved to the country or you've changed positions, you explain that. But yeah, you don't want to leave that out. That's experience that directly relates to the positions that you're applying for.
Yeah, and I also saw a related question in the chat about, is it okay to put put relevancy at the top rather than chronologically? And I would say, yeah, if you've done work most recently in another industry, I think it's totally reasonable to put the industry relevant thing. You know, I wouldn't put it in a random order. I would make sure it's logical. You know, maybe you have a section for industry experience, and then that goes chronologically, and then below that you have a section for other experience that also goes chronologically. But you know, I saw a related question. I figured I'd mention that as well. And I fully agree with Jerry. You know, let our eyes see the stuff we want to see sooner. Move it to the top.
Very good. Our next question here is from Timbuktu Production. If an applicant hasn't graduated for a media school but has an adequate experience, would you look over them?
I'll jump in here. I would not look past them, and I'll tell you why. The experience is huge. When I was teaching students at UF, I often would bring up the fact that grades are extremely important, but I'm not going to hire you because you had straight A's. Not in this industry. I need somebody that has personality and work ethic and is not afraid to, number one thing that I look for in an interview, willing to learn. You know, you can say, I've got a little bit of experience, I've done this in school, but I'm willing to learn, and that takes it a long way with me. So you don't have to have a degree necessarily to get there. Any education that you can have will be helpful. Saying that, the more that you can learn, even outside of the structure of that particular position, we're all wearing multiple hats now. And that's a benefit. And if you can show me that your talent and your skills apply not only to that position, but that company, and I can use you in multiple places for different things, now you've brought value to the table.
Thank you so much, Jerry, for that. No, good. It's a good question there. Another question from Cass. As she says, if you worked a long time position as a as a police officer, but then had to retire due to a medical injury and was unable to work, and then started school. How do I put it into my resume, or do I explain it all? So she had a
I
couple
think,
there.
yeah,
Of course.
I would say, I think whether you choose to disclose that is up to you, considering that it was a medical disability. You could, as simple as put in a bullet point when you give that job description that, retired in 2018 due to a medical injury. And it could be as simple as that. If you have that on there, I don't think hiring managers are going to be like, well, what was it? A back injury? Was it a leg injury? How were you injured on the job? I think it really could be as simple as that. And you've thus now explained why you're out of that industry and are looking for something else.
Good. Thank you so much, Lonnie, for answering Cass's question. Another question from Jeremy Nis says, "My passion is in film, but there are a lot of people at my campus who think I should be in the radio industry because of my and fun. I think me and fun. I've been doing a radio project. Though I have the passion for film, should I try radio?"
But can I take this as? I would say yes. I'd say, and this is no offense to TV and film and anything else, but but one of the old sayings is radio pays in fun because TV pays more. But if you really have a personality for radio, you should give it a try. There's a certain amount of freedom that you have. And look, it doesn't mean that's the only thing you can do in your career if you want to go and make films. But I would say go and try it and see how much you like it, or if you hate it. You really won't know until you do it. But if a lot of people are saying that, they're seeing something or hearing something from you that makes them think that way.
It'll make you better at TV and film too. We employed TV and radio producers and reporters here, and a lot of our most successful TV people, started out on the radio side, because you get to focus on making the audio sound good without having to think about the visual part. Then you get the audio part down and you expand to the visual part.
Yeah. And be careful with us TV people, okay? This plan. Timbuktu has another question. Says, would you use a YouTube link to your page that shows all the show content you've produced?
That is a resounding yes.
Yes.
And make sure that we can see it, that it's not private. Another quick tip too is that I have candidates sometimes who send me their resume and it's on a Google Drive and they want me to request access to see their resume. Make it as easy as possible for me to get to know you. Send me a Word doc or a PDF of your resume. Don't make it a private, I have to request access to something. Same with YouTube. Yeah. Make it unlisted if you don't want people to be able to search it, but then I can see it. If you make it private and I can't see it and I have to ask you for permission, you have now delayed that job search process.
And if your YouTube channel is public and you're giving us a link, be mindful about the fact that we're going to look at the channel. So if you've also got a video on there of you stumbling around drunk at 4 a.m, maybe think about who can see that.
Yep. Very true. Very true. It's happened before. William Wagner has hello, I'm William W. Here. I'm wondering if there are any recommendations for those looking for more freelance work instead of a company job.
There's plenty of that out there.
Yeah.
We've got those listed. You can look at Fiverr. You can look. There's multiple pages that offer freelance work and voice work and video work. Don't be afraid of that. If you want to be your own boss and you want to be an entrepreneur, do that. There's a lot of people making a living that have lost their jobs in the industry. They're doing that now. So if you're looking for that, there's definitely pages out there. I'm happy to help you with some of those as recommendations. Just reach out to me and I'm happy to send you their way.
Thank you very much for that. Bruno has another question. Says here, for my situation, I've been out of the workforce, due to a disability, and my work experience is limited to the things I've learned at school. Would you recommend that I only put my school experience?
I mean, I think it depends on what the previous work experience was and how long ago. I mean, I love Lonnie's answer about the previous question with the gap. I think, again, we don't need, detail about, obviously, if it's a medical situation, I think any reasonable interviewer is going to, be understanding of that. But being upfront about some reference to that, helps us, because if we see nothing and you do get to the point of being interviewed, our first question is going to be for an explanation. So I think giving some context, I don't think you need to go into a ton of detail. But, again, I think some of this comes down to what was your work experience like? When you reference being out of the workforce, was there previous work experience? Or if not, I would focus obviously then on the school experience and where that's brought you.
Awesome. Thank you for answering that question. I think we may be up. Yep, I think that was the last question, if I'm not mistaken, Linda. And so we're coming up on our 1 hour mark here. And first of all, from my side, Lonnie, Jerry, Dan, and Matt, thank you so much for taking your time and answering these questions to our students and potential alumni that are on the chat as well. Thank you for talking to me. You guys have, even though I've been around the industry for quite some time, I'm still learning, and so I always love doing these because I pick up a tad bit and the nuggets that you guys throw out there. So thank you for all your expertise and your passion and your professionalism as always. And it was an honor to talk to you on this forum. Linda, floor's yours.
Well, I have to say, what a great hour. I told you it would go so very fast, more fast than we wanted it to go. Thank you for all the information you shared. And I think another big takeaway is, just how willing people are to help you.
Yes.
So if, when you're on this journey looking for a job, you are not alone. If you're a current student, you've got your school, if you're a graduate, you have your school, but you have these professionals, and these professionals also shared with you to reach out. If you don't ask for something, you won't get it. And so it's the way you ask. If you're going to ask for somebody's time, which is so very valuable, be concise, but have a reason for reaching out. And I think you're going to find that the result is really going to help you move forward and find that place that is the right place for you, or the place that you're moving towards. So, thank you. Thank you so much. This is going to be part of our library. Our folks will invite them back to check out and to learn more. And of course, to our guests, just a big thank you for spending Monday night after a busy weekend with us to allow our students and everybody who joins our community to learn through you. I can't wait to have you all back again. So appreciate your time and all the love and experience you share with us.
Thank you for putting this together. This was awesome.
It was a lot of fun. Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask my guests to stick around for one more second, and we're going to say goodbye to the crew that joined us tonight, but stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 more weeks with another great topic. Tony, thank you. You were amazing too.
Thanks, Tony.
Have a good night.
See my students in class tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Oh, that was a lot of fun.